Hey, everybody, welcome to the Football 360 show, coming at you live on YouTube and X. Of course, you can hear the audio podcast version on Spotify as well as Apple and everything Football 360 at football360show.com. Coming at you live from the Palatial. Is that right? Right word? Palatial?
Yeah.
Palatial.
Palatial. Yeah.
I'm sorry. My music is like drowning out I can't think.
I see. Yeah.
Palatial Studios, Football 360 show. What's happening, Matt?
We're both back from vacation.
We're both back from vacation. By the way, I am JP Rock. He is Matt Bierman.
Yep. And football season in Missouri is starting. And actually, it's starting pretty much across the entire country now.
Yeah, so everything's
everybody's
going.
rolling.
Every kind of football that there
every
is,
level's rolling.
Every little level, and including JFL and flag football.
Well, some of the JFL teams have been going since January of last year or of this year, or it's just a year-round endeavor, which we can talk about. I'm not a huge fan of the football season not ending. I think there's a good, season, off season, spring ball, summer season again.
That's helpful when it's like that. By the way, if anybody's looking to coach some D line for an 8th grade team, hit me up. JP Rock MO on Twitter. JP Rock Scout.
Is that for
my nephew?
My
nephew. I got the message. They're like, "Hey, would you be interested?" I'm like, "Man, I am slammed busy wise. I can't. I would love to."
Yes,
but
finding youth coaches is at a
tough.
Premium. Finding high school coaches is at a premium.
Finding good ones. Is
I lucked out this year at my junior team.
You got an all-star coaching staff now.
I added BJ Wilson as our offensive line coach, who absolutely loving it. And another guy named Tim Ware, who's with St. Louis County Police, awesome guy I played with in high school. He played collegiately, and then we coached together for years back in the early 2000s, and we needed a D-line coach, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'm in."
Nice.
I mean, just like beautiful. Both he's got 2 daughters that are in college now playing athletics. He's his work is under control, so he's got some time to do it. It's a 1-year commitment, so I think he's excited. It's awesome, and you know what?
That's perfect.
There's not a better place, and I know junior football gets a bad rap sometimes, and it's kind of like, well, it's a lower level, but undeservedly, because a lot of the men there are giving time, and they're professionals in other endeavors in their lives, and that does not necessarily mean that they're not any higher level of a coach or communicator, right? You can take a guy like a Tim Ware who leads a lot of officers. That's who he trains and develops. And then he gets to do that with kids as well. So if you're a good communicator and a good leader, it works across the board. And if you happen to have knowledge in that game, like, look, I'm pretty decent at communicating when it comes to teaching skills, but I have my professional levels, right? Yeah. But you don't want me teaching rowing, right? But if you kind of gave me the outline, I could at least motivate.
Yeah. If you know what you're supposed to do, you can do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. Like I've coached girls softball, right?
Yep.
It's like I'm damn good at it, man. You know what I mean? Because if you have that basic knowledge and you know what you're supposed to be, A into B goes to C, then you can do it.
Well, let me tell you, working with female athletes, the first and foremost, like if they don't trust you, they are the hardest group to coach. But if they do trust you, they're far easier and better to coach than males.
Attention.
Oh, way more.
Way
better attention to detail.
Yeah. Yes.
They are trusting. And once they trust you, they will legitimately do what you ask them to do. Whereas a boy, the challenge with coaching, middle school and high school boys is, it's that typical male mentality of, let me show you how I do it.
I was going to say, the boys always are like, oh, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Okay, then why'd you just make a mistake 5 times in a row?
Right. And the girls, you will coach them, you will teach them how to do it this way, and they will ask why.
Yes.
And so then you're like, break it down for them. Okay.
Yes.
And then they'll do it. Now, the only thing is once they stop paying attention, good luck getting them back.
Correct.
Because when they want to have fun, when they want to have girl time, then you're lost.
It's over. Your voice is not even. It doesn't even exist.
Then they start doing cartwheels.
I got a little taste of that with my daughter, and I loved it. It was a lot of fun. And then I just kind of timed out with her sports, and She went on to more competitive. Now she's doing field hockey, and
nice.
I don't know,
another golfer in the family.
No, you know what's funny is she looked at me one day. She goes, "I should have golfed." I was like, "Well, we didn't push though. When you have a family member who's like a nationally ranked golfer, like it's really difficult to sometimes follow that. So like she would go to the range and stuff with them, and never really loved it. But I think now probably will learn it more at a basic level just to be good at it as she gets older.
I'm a big believer, if you have a young athlete, teach them to play golf.
Oh yeah,
have them play golf, because as you know, that's a great path.
It really is. It's an awesome game, and there's from a collegiate perspective, they fly. She's at Michigan State. They fly privately. Like this past weekend, she was in the U.S. Women's Amateur, so like she won the Missouri State Amateur, which is a big deal. And then she played really well. Her first day was okay, and then she shot the third best score the second day. So she really they played at Southern Hills, I think, down in Tulsa, which is like where they play one of the championship. And like it's world class golf. But then her team, because she qualified for that, they're able to help support the athletes in that. So they get treated really well.
It's a great lifestyle.
Really, really well.
Great lifestyle. Good way to make a living.
It is. Do it. Yeah,
Even if it's part-time, it's a great lifestyle.
And it's such a good skill set, because you see the number of football players, professional, that gravitate towards the game when they're done. One, you're in nature. You get to get out and get to be, in the environment. But it's a challenging game. I mean, it is. Man, I used to be pretty decent a long time ago, and then I stopped when I started really getting hardcore into training and developing and doing our business, and I just stopped altogether. But I loved it, and I learned to play as a little kid, which, to your point, if you can learn it as a little kid, you're much better off, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's, even though I haven't played in a long time, I could probably have a few decent shots, right? I'm gonna have a bunch of bad ones too, but it's one of those things you don't really forget.
Right. And plus, it's just the whole social aspect of it. If you're going to do, a lot of people do business. They want
a lot.
A lot of high rollers want to play golf.
Yes, they do.
And it's like, I don't play golf. It's like, what?
Yeah, you're not a golfer, but I think it is, to your point. Teach when they're young. It's easy for them to learn how to do it, right? It's easier to learn how to swing and fall in love with the game. But
absolutely.
But and then but here we are talking about brute force, we're running into each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We know. Yeah. We're so well.
We know. Yeah. We're well rounded as far as everything goes.
Yes.
So now we're going to talk finances.
Yeah.
So. But now back to what we're here for, the Football 360 show. Everything's kicking off. Mizzou's just I believe they had their second scrimmage already. Their depth charts rounding out. Looks like they got their number 1 through number 3 running backs, including Jamal Roberts from St. Mary's, who's looks like he's going to be their number 3, going to get some playing time. Nate Noel is their starter. Carroll, their number 2 guy, more of a power guy. Noel,
it's good. That to me is going to be the number 1 thing to watch for them.
That is the number 1.
Receiver core, they're going to be fine. Which
deep.
Will take a little pressure off the backs, I think. But on the flip side, it's going to be a serious break-in period, those first game or two, without Cody Schrader there, because he was such a pivotal component of that offense, right? And he ran so well behind his pads. And I saw his first game. He had a decent showing, not probably what he wanted in those NFL preseason games. It's hard though.
It is hard.
It's hard
to showcase.
It's hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You get 5 carries, 6 yards. Well, the problem is, what was that? You look at the other running backs; they didn't have much great. They didn't have a great deal there. But Isaiah Williams,
big,
Isaiah Williams,
he's the toast of the town.
He could be a really interesting scenario for him up there in Detroit.
So let me ask you this question about Isaiah Williams, and we're going back to the Trinity days. Do you think he should have always played receiver? Because I know you had him as a quarterback.
I will tell you, no. I think. No, because knowing what I know now about the size of quarterbacks, I think what happened at Illinois is that they obviously wanted him badly there, and it's like one of those things where it's like, hey, we'll take you, and then if we have to switch you, we'll switch you, right? And he was prepared. Like, I mean, on one side, if he would have always worked at receiver, I think he would have been extremely good, right? And ahead of the game of where he is today. But he was such a good thrower. And that's what I used to always tell him. I'm like you throw significantly, like he wasn't like a top 10 arm strength, but top 10 as far as feel, timing, all of that. I mean, he could do it all. And then obviously his running abilities were just electric. So,
great deep ball, man.
Yeah. I think a lot of people didn't understand. I used to tell them, I'm like, look, like I could care less about your running abilities because that's just you and your God-given abilities. Once it happens, just do it. But building up to that time that you're going to throw the ball, you are a top flight quarterback.
Right.
But you're right. His deep ball, I mean, he could chuck it, and he had good arm strength to the edge to the field too. So,
a lot of guys can chuck it, but that placement.
Let me tell you, he had I think his freshman year, they put him in a redshirt freshman year. He got in towards the end of the season. He threw a ball in a game over the top of a linebacker underneath the safety, and it was a touchdown. And the announcer, because it was such a good throw, and you don't see a lot of balls like that. And I think the underestimation of him was, well, he's just a running quarterback. No. He made a high level, like All-American level throw early in his career. I think it might have been for a game winner. And the narrative was, oh, did he mean to do that type of thing? It's like, no. He trained to do that.
Right.
Don't mistake it. He's trained to do that. And so I remember talking to him about it at the time. But I think maybe in a different scenario, he ends up being the Kyler Murray. He ends up being, because he's not any smaller than those guys. Yeah. The one thing about him is too, that always used to really get me. I'd say, what do you weigh right now? He'd be like, well, I'm like 175. Yeah. He looked like he was 150, right?
That was the thing, yeah.
And then you go, he's in college. Hey, what do you weigh now? He's like, I'm 195. He looks like he weighs
170,
literally 170, right? So he is very dense. He's super explosive. He's a guy who tested really high in all of our force play testing, like obviously explosive.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting when you look at his career trajectory. And then, coming out, maybe you're right. If he is like more developed as a receiver, he's in college. I mean, he led the Big Ten in receiving last year, right?
Yeah.
Does he get drafted higher if he goes in as a receiver, or if he goes to a different school and they use him as a receiver right out of the gate? I don't know, but I think those guys find their way on the NFL rosters, and then 2 years from now, like it's not even that he was an undrafted free agent; it's that he's a starting receiver.
Right. Where it's not a surprise to you or me what's going on with him, but for everybody else, it's like, whoa, And so that's why I asked that. Could he have played at a higher level? Would he have been a higher draft pick? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because he was electric with the ball in his hand. I mean, and that
very
was
few like him.
Very few like him, and that was his thing, really. I mean, broken plays, whatever. Nobody was open. Forget it.
Human highlight reel.
Human highlight. You would rather have him throw the ball than be in the open field.
And you're not going to find a better kid. Like he is such a the time I spent with him from his freshman through senior year, and even early into college, he's the kid who I would get done, late at night. He's still there. We're training, whatever. And it's like now 11 o'clock at night. We're in there still talking, training. He did that constantly. His senior year, we worked extensively. It was a lot. And he was at the top of his game, right? So he still would work. I mean, we would have myself and Marcus Snozik, and he would have conversations. We would get into competitions with each other. Smile. He's having a good time. But he's a guy who is remarkably grounded for someone who had all that attention.
Oh, yeah.
And he literally, his focus was just working hard. It wasn't about any showboat, any of that crap.
No, and he was on an all-star team basically at Trinity. And there were those guys on that team.
Correct.
Who were like that. And he was, like you said, he was just grounded. He didn't get caught up in none of that. His mindset. And, look where he's at now.
Tell you what, we had his last year, you're going to be a senior. That just spring before he was on our 7-on-7 team with Midwest Boom. And so he had a lot of his guys were on the team. And then we had a mixture of other guys, Jordan Johnson. And we had a young quarterback by the name of Brady Cook. Yeah. That was the, third quarterback on our team. And, when you have a facility where it trains top quarterbacks, when you have a 7-on-7 team, you carry a few more quarterbacks than normal because you have so many good guys, but they train together. They're all part of the same system. They're there to work with each other. Whereas some guys, it's all about, well, let me just go get every single rep. But that's not really what it's about. There's development. So you look back at those pivotal years with a guy like Isaiah Williams mentoring a guy like Brady Cook.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I'm going to tell you, I had a conversation before that year. I said, hey, we either can have Brady be on this other team, right? The other top team, if you will, for his age, or I'd like to bring him along with you guys and get him sped up. He looked at me. He's like, for sure. He's like, he needs to be with us. Okay. Yeah. Well, then we get into a tournament one weekend, and Nate Martins was the third quarterback who played at Northern Iowa. And we were short guys. We're up in Rockford, Illinois. And Isaiah looks at me and goes, Coach, just let me play receiver. I let Brady play quarterback. He's like, I don't need to play quarterback. I said, Isaiah, like, you're a quarterback. I don't want to get you hurt either, right? And he's like, no, please. Well, then he gets over at defensive back, right? First play, like, I'm not paying attention to what's going on, right? Like, because I'm trying to get the offense set or whatever. So he's out there playing corner, and there's a ruckus on the other far sideline. I mean, ruckus. Like, these guys are going, yelling, screaming, and we're playing a team from that general area in Chicago, and they're all pissed off and yelling, and he had taken the guy, he had jammed him so hard he put him on their sideline. So a mild-mannered kid, he finally gets to go play defensive back. What's the first thing he does? He manhandles some poor kid, right? Yeah. And absolutely destroys him. And then there's almost a fight, the whole thing. And it's not him. He just did his job.
Yeah. No malice.
No malice. He's going to do it again next play. But yeah, just looking at that, like, he is just such a remarkable human being. So I'm excited to see, hopefully he can keep it up, which I think he will. But, it's hard making those teams, especially when you got guys like Amon St. Brown and those guys that are on that team. There's some studs on that team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, and you had a little bit of that this past year, too, with your quarterbacks. I know you had a lot of quarterbacks. You had Reese Shanklin, who, I mean, who's going to be
he's going to be a dude.
Yeah, he's going to be a dude, along with a lot of these other guys.
Yeah. And that, to me, like, at the end of the day, like I love, the outside football stuff, but, like, the training at the end of the day is what's going to make you better. We were talking before, like, like the hate that a lot of these quarterbacks and even some of these better, skill position guys get from people when they start getting offers is so real. But all it is someone else is just not understanding, like, hey, you had the same opportunity to work and you didn't.
Right.
So now you're mad that this kid's getting, getting respect and getting offers. Like, what are you upset about? Like, you had every opportunity and you didn't do it. So it's easier to sit and complain.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's like anything else. Everybody wants it, but they don't want it.
Yeah. I had a funny, I think you'll get a kick out of this. So I'll leave names out of it. But I had a guy approach me and he said something about one of our younger quarterbacks. He's like, yeah, I was talking to a dad and he said, have you seen this kid's Instagram feed? It's like he's trying to get recruited.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's trying to, he's putting videos out and he's trying to get recruited. And I looked at the guy and I go, okay.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, they said they're going to use that as motivation. I said, what motivation? That he's working and they're not?
Right.
Like, what's the motivation? You're upset that someone's putting what they do out there when it's commonplace in the world. And I looked at him, I said, well, yeah, that kid, he's got 2 offers. He goes, what? I said, that's not what you see up on the screen. You see him working. You don't see the offers behind the scene. And he goes, he already has offers. And I was like, yeah, that's how it works. I said, you're over here worried about, Little League baseball and which select soccer team and
going on vacation,
all these things.
Your son's Instagram is him, taking selfies, or him with this girl or whatever.
And that's what I don't like. To me, like, anytime you'd get upset with the kid for putting up positive things of them working, one, it shows people that they're working. It shows kind of their wares, if you will. 2, it's a reinforcement from a sports psychology perspective of, like, hey, I'm earning this. I'm doing what's required to get better. And I think, the hate and the angst and the jealousy on something like that is just, it's from adults is even more bizarre, because let's be truthful.
Wow.
The kids probably may talk crap, but in the back of their head, they're like, oh, that kid's pretty good. He's working his ass off. And it's just gamesmanship.
Yeah.
But for an adult to not understand that, like, what are you teaching your kids?
See, bad stuff.
Yeah.
That's
what are you teaching them?
You can always tell bad kids usually have bad parents, right? Yeah. And I deal with that a lot. There's a lot of jealousy. A lot of jealousy because people always want me to, about their kid. And so, I mean, I deal with a lot of jealousy. Well, why do you feel this way about him, but not my kid? And then I lay it out for them, and they still don't get it. But for social media, the only good thing about social media is to promote yourself athletically or whatever you do. The other stuff is crap, and stay off it.
Right. If you, and so I went and looked at the kid's deal, his Instagram. It was maybe 5 or 6 total posts, and one was a highlight film, and one was throwing balls to his friends, and then the other 3 or 4 were just normal, like training footage.
I was gonna say, that's it.
That's what you need to have.
That's it. Training sessions, some game stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You in the weight room, maybe
right.
with good lifts. Don't be arching your back on a heavy bench.
Yeah,
that's bad stuff. I mean, you don't need photos of you at a gas station late at night with your buddies.
Wait, you don't show your outfit every time you go to the gas station?
Your shoes. There's a thing going on. I guess it's like from the knee. Everybody's like showing like down at their shoes for their pants and their shoes. And
let me tell you,
I'm like past.
You don't that. Like you get to a point where like do that on your own. That has nothing to do with your football stuff or your athletic stuff.
In a group chat.
Snapchat.
Don't
let it disappear.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Perfect.
So I think people get very, very lost in what they need to focus on. If you are training and developing and doing the lifting and eating right and doing all the things on a mental side of the game, it's all going to take care of itself. Right. And that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect for you. But it means your odds are going to go up. And Isaiah Williams was a guy that did all those things. Like he was a U.S. Army All-American, or no, excuse me, he was an Under Armour All-American. He knew he was going to play in the game. He knew where he was going to college. He had offers from like every Division I school, but he still was coming in multiple nights a week throughout the year, and it didn't change once the season started.
Right.
That's how you end up in the NFL.
Yep, that is
right. And that mentality, whether he changed position or not, didn't change. And so I think there's just so much that needs to be taught to people from a perspective of how you carry yourself, what really matters, what doesn't matter, right? And then synchronizing and getting yourself in a good groove, if you will, to do the things that are necessary to go to where you say you want to go. If you don't really want to go there, then front all day and do all that stuff. But like at the end of the day, you're going to get found out. But don't get mad at someone else that actually does it the right way.
Right. And it might be harder if you go the being taught route as opposed to just that's who you are. Because like very highly successful people, they're just born that way a lot of the times. Whereas, I just know for myself, I got to push myself because guess what? I like easy just like everybody else. So I got to push myself when I do stuff, and when I do, I'm very successful at what I do.
Correct.
And so then it makes me mad. It's like, well, damn, man, I should have been doing that all along. That's what needs to be instilled at a young age.
100%. Yeah, and that is interesting because you'll in the competition aspect, your own worst enemy is yourself, right? And most of these kids and most adults, if we're honest with ourselves, we're not in competition with anybody but ourselves, right? So you look at the person in the mirror, you're honest with yourself, and you say, hey, look, you either got to get it going or not, right? Like it's strong survive or they get pushed to the side. It's it. So but yeah, learning that at a young age. And I think some of that, you start to study the sports psychology of giving yourself credit for when you do things the right way, but being honest with yourself when you're not doing what you say you're going to do. And a lot of that goes back to just, what you were taught when you were little. A lot of it goes back to how you learned about it, right? Who modeled it for you. Yep. But we all, at the end of the day, are responsible for ourselves. And I think that's what we try and teach our athletes is like, look, we can show you all we know and teach you.
Right.
But at some point you have to be that.
You have to be that guy or gal. And what I love is the rags to riches, where people come from a depressed background and they're up against it and they rise to the top. It's like, and that really should motivate you. Like, well, wait a minute, they did it. Why shouldn't I? You know, and that's just something
that pushes your culture and everybody forward. Like the culture of American greatness is achieving more than what people thought you could do. Like, look at the Olympics, a great example of that, right? Like you have
to live it.
Like those, a lot of those sports are, you know, short of breakdancing. I'm not even gonna like, come on.
You know, you're a big Ray Gun fan.
You know, back in the day, I was, you know, back in the early 80s, you know, breakdancing was a cool thing. I still can't believe it resurges there.
Your parachute pants.
Yeah, cardboard on the floor. Yeah. So, but like, you look at those athletes, right? Like I was watching like early on, like even the skateboarders, right? And they showed these, a lot of these kids are like 14, 15-year-old, like from Japan. And there's a couple of younger Americans as well, but like wild, like extremely athletic, but the amount of time you can tell that they've put into their sport and their practicing of their skills is through the roof. But then you have to have the ability to actually put it on the line when it counts. And it's fun to watch. Like it's fun to watch people that have mastered a set of skills and then have that ability to do it live, you know, on television or in front of in the arena
or on the field, which is, you know, I mean, I get to witness it. You get to help develop it. You know, which is the great thing. You know, I just saw where Mason Wentz just picked up a couple more PWOs. People, by the way, colleges, you will not be sorry for offering the full ride. I'm telling you right now.
Correct.
100% guaranteed. You will not, because there are guys, there are guys who are getting offers for full ride offers who are not going to pan out as well as Mason will, because he's one of those guys we were just talking about. He has dedicated himself.
Yes, he has.
And worker like you would not believe, and talent.
And, you know,
comes from a smaller school.
One of those things too, that like, you know, as you look at how teams are built, and I know it's different now because in the transfer portal era, but you still have to have in any organization, business, team, whatever it might be, it has to have a strong component of quality people that knit together. You have to have that. Your pillars of position groups, pillars of the team, pillars of morality and hard work. All of that has to be intertwined, right? And so, you know, not only can he play football, but he has those aspects that are going to make your team better when he's in there. Is he going to be the guy going out and partying and making bad decisions? Probably not, right? I heard a story, and I forgot exactly who they were talking about, but they were talking about 2 draft picks. And they said that they were talking about a guy, 2 different guys that they had. And the one guy was probably a little bit better. Like, you know, not probably, he was better. The other guy was a stalwart, but just a little bit better guy, human. And they said the one guy would go out, party all night, right? And could get up and play the next day as if it didn't happen. He was still at that level. The other guy didn't party. And he played at a little bit lower level, but he was the guy who would prevent the other guys from going out and partying as well. Right. So he was a voice of reason. The guy that was the partier who could still perform at an all pro level, his biggest downfall was he would bring the other 7, 8, 9 guys along with them who did not have the ability to rebound and play up to their maximum level after partying the night before. And so you start to look, how does that degrade a team? Yes, you get this better player, but you also have, you know, 1/10 of your team doing things they shouldn't do and performing at a lower level.
He's a bad leader.
Right. So does he, you know,
charismatic, you know.
And so I don't know that there's enough emphasis on the human side in recruiting, because you and I know there is a lot of kids that we've seen get recruited out of our region. I won't even say out of St. Louis, but out of our region, where you're like, man, do they know what they just got themselves into?
Right.
And then it doesn't, you know, back in the day, it would just kind of get swept under the rug. Now that kid's a 5-time transfer guy.
Right. Oh, yeah. And like 5-time transfer in high school and college. You know what I mean? Which you're seeing a lot of take place right now. It's like, you know, you want the stability. So there's him. There's a lot of guys. Basically, everybody who you're training offensive line is that kind of guy, which is interesting.
Well,
because I know last week we talked about like the mental aspect. Do you guys teach it? It's interesting that your offensive linemen that train at Elite are all of similar mentality. And I think that, and without being like in the room, so to speak, in the training room, we get your coaches meet with the guys. They're all of that similar mentality. So I can only assess that's what they're learning from you guys.
Right. I think there's a level of professionalism. Jamie
and
and BJ and Big John, all those guys, what they're talking to the kids about, their mentality rubs off because they're the guys showing them the way, right? And again, like that's not to say they're not getting it with their team, but we do spend a lot of time in the off season with these guys, right? And there's a lot of mentorship and a lot of things that go into it, and it's just how you carry yourself too, how you communicate, and leaving the lines of communication open with them. And I think it's also like I communicate with the offensive line guys a lot because they're good kids. They're stalwarts. They're there a lot, and their parents are there. Usually a really supportive group of parents, especially when they're younger. Because the linemen often feel like they're left out, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
it's kind of
they don't get the accolades.
Yeah, they should.
I try.
Yeah, but they, that group in general, it's a very intellectual group of kids, very just hard workers, just very focused on. And what I love, they support each other. There's not a lot of like, well, he got this offer, he got this. They're applauding one another and they're pushing for each other, telling schools about each other.
They are, and they're very accepting. I remember when the some East St. Louis kids come on. And then the East St. Louis came on and they were just, come on, and they're rooting for each other. And guess what? Then the East St. Louis kids turn around and they take on
same thing,
similar mentality. And then new people come, and then they're the guys who are the mentors who are rooting guys on.
To me,
Terrell Berryhill is a guy who
like,
really
look, and I, like for years, I'll just call it the way it is. We would catch flack because we're in West St. Louis County, right? We'd say, oh, well, don't go out there because those guys are just a bunch of West County guys. That could be further from the truth. Like if you come into our facility any Sunday, any day throughout the week, we have all different types of athletes training in there. But when football is going on, it is a cross section of the Midwest, right? It does not matter white, black. It does not matter rich, poor. It doesn't matter county, city.
One of the best things about football you get to see on display.
It's unbelievable.
Brings everybody together.
And it is such a good environment to be around other guys. Like we always talk about, iron sharpens iron. Yeah. You get around other guys that are like-minded, and it's like-minded in the sense of we're all trying to get to the same place. And oh, by the way, this guy might be a little further along than me. This guy might be new in his journey. But to your point, like the how quickly kids meld together, it's strange. And I will tell you,
it really is.
I will tell you, I've heard of other facilities across the country where it does not operate like that. And I think a lot of it goes back to you have to have strong male presence in the room, right? There's guys that are believable that are in there that have done it. Like, look, since February of 2006, every Sunday minus Easter, and then the Sundays in December, we've trained.
Holidays,
We've trained.
Yep.
Like literally, we're in that. Like it has occurred. It is a common. I don't know how many Sundays that is. It's a lot. Hundreds.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. We've done it so many times that there is a sense of calm that's in there because you're not going to present anything to us that we haven't seen before, right? Yeah. So you're not going to come ask questions that we haven't answered before or encountered.
Yeah.
So we've only gotten better with our answers and how we deal with it. So, that's what I go back to when you talk about like why you're doing it, what's your motive? Like we didn't get into this to start a business. We got into it to coach kids, right? It happens to be to pay for the bills and the building and all that, the 23,000 square feet in Chesterfield Valley, which is not the cheapest thing in the world. But it also provides a great central meeting point for all the kids around the Midwest to come in and do it. So it's one of those things that we've been blessed to be able to do and grow, but it did not start out as, hey, let's do this. I mean, I worked a job for 18 years, a full-time job while I built that business, and no one ever knew it. You know why? It wasn't a big deal. It was what needed to be done. to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish on the football side of thing. I literally worked a full-time for a Fortune 25 company, full-time. And I worked just as many, if not more hours every single evening and weekend from that period of time. And you know what's crazy? I never thought twice about it because I enjoyed doing it. Like I enjoyed it. And it allowed the business to grow and not get snuffed out right at the beginning, because it is terribly difficult to get into that business, into a sports training business, without losing a ton of money. And so we've seen it happen 1,000 times. Like it seems really sexy. It seems like a cool thing to do. And then you get into it and you realize, like, wait, I can't catch up fast enough. And it's happened. I mean, it happened at our facility with Velocity Sports, that like 2 ownership groups. Well, we were in there training and running our business side by side with them, and they didn't make it. And they had a lot more funding than we did.
Right.
But they also didn't have a maniacal owner who worked another job,
right,
so that it didn't happen. Right. You know, and so I think that mentality has rubbed off on our facility and our coaches and the guys that know the story behind the scenes. And I think, to me, that's not like, oh, you get a cookie for that. It's, oh, you get to actually do this at a high level, you know, day in and day out. And so I think that mentality is just kind of who we are and how we're ingrained. It's been ingrained in us, right? And
that helps explain the mentality going on inside with the training right now.
Oh yeah.
So that mentality that you had with that has been passed along.
It's relentless. I will tell you, relentless, like relentless. And it is. I will say, thank God, my wife was.
Well, I wasn't going to say it.
Like that she put up with it, because.
Well, in many aspects, she's a saint.
Yeah, I mean, but I will tell you. So going back 2006,
our wives really are saints.
Right. I mean, it's like, because football season comes.
They're football widows.
Yeah, right. It's over, right? Yeah. Right now, this time of the year and on. And I would argue, because of what we do, we're more year round than even a lot of other people.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so, but I had a guy named Gary Bertolucci, who was he was the president of Chesterfield football at the time. So we had just moved in from training outdoors from 99 to like beginning of 2006. And we like formalized ourselves in this new building. Right. And, the days they gave us to train was Sundays, and then eventually Friday nights, the 2 sucker bets, right? Mm-hmm. No one wanted them. So we start training this team, Chesterfield Bears, and his team. And there was a kid on that team named Alec Ablin, who's actually now
assistant in Tennessee Volunteers.
He's a coach at Tennessee, which is pretty cool.
Mizzou, yeah.
Yeah. So
Mizzou.
But yeah, so Gary looked at me and says, "Hey, I just have a piece of friendly advice for you, right?" And here I'm, you know, I've taken this business from outside that was like a fun thing that was running some, camps and clinics and training kids or any field I could find, to formalized business. Right now I'm paying rent. I got all these things coming at me. And he says, "Hey, my piece of advice is you need to get your wife involved in this business. And if you don't, you're either going to lose your business or you'll lose your wife, or both."
Yeah.
And he said, "You need to get her involved, because if you don't, she's going to think you're in here playing, because it's football."
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Yeah. And the best advice was taken that day when I looked and said, "All right, I need to figure this out." Right. Because it hit me, because I was like, he's right. Like, this is going to look really bad as this thing, if it grows the way I think it's going to.
Right.
And guess what? I took his advice. Stephanie works in the business. She now is integral part behind the scenes. But I go back to that moment in time. But he was a business owner. Yeah. He could see what we were doing. He could see it was going to have some success, but he also knew serious pitfalls. But yeah, like if you have a house divided, and you're trying to do something like what we were doing, or you have a mom and a dad that don't agree on their child playing football to begin with, like it's just as equally as devastating, right? It's hard to overcome. So, but yeah, that's a little of the background, because like a lot of people don't realize that we actually did that. And I mean, it was, I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you, looking back on it, but I'm so glad I did.
You know how you did it? You put your head down and just kept going. Yeah. You went
remember I said I stopped golfing?
Yeah.
I stopped doing a lot of things.
Absolutely.
I stopped doing a lot of things, but I get to do what I love every single day. So
you cannot beat that. You cannot beat that.
How does that, play out? So that the sacrifice was real, but the reward was just as good, if not better. So I I love it. And I think, we probably unfairly, yourself and myself, have people look and go, oh, well, I wish I would love to do that. And it's like, yeah, but there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
Right. And
the grind of it for 20 plus years.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. But the payoff is awesome. Right. Yeah. Like, so, what's your plans for this, like, coming up the next few weeks? Just practice.
For me?
Yeah.
Practice. I mean, it's going fast. I mean, I don't know whether it's just time speeding up, but I'm telling you what, I mean, we're already like on day 2 of fall practice for high school stuff. And then, Saturday you have some inter-squad scrimmages, you have some media days. And then next Friday, just a week from this Friday, jamboree time.
Yep.
And then boom, you're in the season. So yeah, it's practice, jamborees, games, on the road for stuff like it. So it's really
moving. Hey, you and I have talked a little bit about this, but we're not putting it out there fully.
Yeah.
But there's things that are being fleshed out for, like, having a little bit more focus this fall on some games of the weeks, things like that we can play a part in, which I think is going to be pretty cool, because got some good players involved, some big names that would help put a little bit more light on the people that we love to watch and highlight and show. And, like, there's that aspect of the team, right? Where there's a lot of people that like to focus, like the news is going to focus on the scores, the results of the game.
Right.
There's going to be games of the week, if you will, like by people recording it, and like GSV does a good job of, like, really, like, putting high quality, like, footage of the game, but not a lot of coverage, but, like, things that people can watch, right? And go like they did this summer. You can watch some of the 7-on-7 stuff. Not a lot of analysis with that, right? But good job with, like, well shot.
Yeah.
On the flip side, where we get into it is like, okay, hey, we got those guys coming back in. We're working with them, going over film, working through injuries, getting them back to the, getting prepared, all that. You're taking it to the next level, and then helping them get recruited and scouting and writing reports and analyzing actually what's going on at the individual level, right? Because team level is awesome for the school, team level is awesome for the organization, but those teams turn over every 4 years, right? Like you have to leave high school.
Yeah.
So you have to have that end goal. So balancing and loving what you're doing in high school is awesome. Having a vision to the future is also awesome, right?
Right.
And how you balance those. But I will say there's a lot of people coaches that get really, really tunnel visioned around, like, hey, you can't think about that. You got to just live right now and here and there. But I get that, because you have to be present with your team, but you also can't be blind to the fact that you have to leave that team eventually, and you're going to need to have presentable skills for someone else to allow you to be on their team down the line, right? And I think that's where we play such a weird role in that. It's really integral, but, like, we're not the team. We're not. Like, we're not covering. Like,
you got to be able to do both.
Right. Like, so I think us highlighting from what we do and what we know about in teams internally is probably a unique perspective that a lot of people aren't going to get.
It really is. And there's going to be more of that. I can tell you right now, there's going to be more stuff. In fact, I'm probably going to do more coverage of stuff than I probably ever have.
I'll
just leave
what's needed.
Right?
I'll
just leave. Well, and another thing is that as the years go by, you're finding less and less coverage of high school football.
True.
And if you do want it, you're going to have to pay for it. So, you're not going to be able to just pick up your local paper or just go online and find coverages. I mean, there's just, like, down in the Boot Hill, there's just, like, absolute blackout unless you want to subscribe to one site. Down in Southwest Missouri, Springfield News Leader, you got to pay. You can't just, it used to be back in the day, hometown heroes, you could read about them, whatever. Or there used to be, remember the suburban journals?
Oh, yeah. I was going to bring that up.
Pick it up, free paper. Read and great coverage.
They used to have really substantial coverage. And, absolutely. Like, but it's the side of the Times, like, and even the Post, like, they've changed how they cover high school sports. Like there's some paywall stuff. There's some stuff that obviously is out there, but it's not like it was even 5-6 years ago.
No. Right? And some people might not like to read anymore, but I know parents love to read about their kids.
Heck yeah.
And other people have taken upon that. Well, yeah, here, I'll write a blurb about your kid. Pay me this and you can read about your kid. that shouldn't necessarily be the case either. So there's probably more stuff coming about that. And you're right. Some people do coverage. Some people try to take advantage of that because there's a lack of coverage. So they're trying to get their foot in.
And I think too, JP, that people don't understand the line of getting some publicity and what that really does from a scouting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is two totally different worlds. There's one that's great for grandma and grandpa to see, and for dad and mom to show at work to their friends.
Stuff,
right? That's great. That's like acknowledgement of
that's one thing.
That's acknowledgement of like, you know,
your work,
like what you did. Right. On the flip side, there's the analysis of hey, this guy projects at this level because this,
totally
this, and this.
Level. Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with showing up in the paper.
No.
Right. You know, there's you will give tips on that, and you'll there's inklings of it going on because you're gonna like shout out kids.
Right.
But that is just a very base level, like, hey, great job. But there's a whole other side to that from a scouting perspective that schools are seeing,
right,
without that is question. Far more in depth that they're paying for, that is part of their recruiting process.
Right. You know, and I contribute to Prep Red Zone, and that's just a fraction of stuff, right? Because you're right, there are varying levels, there's tiers. And so the stuff where you're going to get recruited by colleges, that's a whole nother level.
That you're not seeing that online.
No, you're not.
So what you see with the Rivals and guys like that, or local ones, is more reporting of facts, right? Like there's not a lot of like, hey, we're going to go examine these 50 kids and stack rank who the top ones are. They're not going to do it.
And you know what? It's great that guys who will never play a lick of college football get a little something about them written, even if it's an inaccurate or just a word salad. It's nice, you know. Hey, but it's not helpful
in the grand scheme of recruiting.
Right?
It's not. And so I think a lot of people misconstrue those mentions. If someone like yourself mentions someone,
you're somebody.
Yes, because you have reports that go out to schools, right? And so those reports. And so I was talking to a guy the other day, like so I'll use an example, like when we were at the Lindenwood camp. So we had, let's just call it 450, 500 quarterbacks that were there. Okay, we'll use Miami of Ohio as an example. They offered 4 quarterbacks, 3 of which were from the St. Louis metro area, 3 of which we've trained extensively, and the 4th is, I think, was from Oklahoma or somewhere else, someone we've never met before. So someone says, well, how do you know who these guys are? Like, how do you know who the good ones are? Well, I'll tell you a really good first stance is that the colleges evaluate those guys, and unbeknownst to them, you train all 3 of them. They don't know that till after the fact. You know, one could say, oh, well, you guys were over there working them over to get those kids offers. The truth of the matter was, that's not how it happened. It can happen that way, like where you tip guys off. But in this case, like one coach had some names mentioned to him, a variety of names, older kids too, in particular. And they end up seeing 3 kids. And the point being is, yes, the name in the paper matters, but one of those guys hadn't even played a varsity football game, but only a few games.
Correct.
And actually 2 of them really.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then the other one had some decent reps, but like they didn't even know they didn't even know that. So my point is they purely evaluated them on what they saw. Well, they evaluated them off of what they've trained and developed to be.
And I've been writing about them since 7th, 8th grade.
And by the way, so then this is how it works. What people don't know.
This is a good show.
So this is what people don't understand. So what happens is there's names on lists. How do they get on your list? You'll go out and evaluate, and you see them throw. You watch them train. Right. Oh my God, that's crazy. So then they actually train and put the work in.
Yeah.
Their names on a list. And so like people don't realize this. You're at like a Lindenwood camp. Those groups, like let's just use Minnesota as an example. They have a list of names and they know what numbers those kids are. They're looking for them. Right. Northwestern was there. They're looking for specific kids. Yes, they're going to find some kids there, but they are there to see Robbie Preckle.
Yep.
Okay. They know what number he is. They know where he's at. They've already been following him around. They're sizing him up. But that started with a report that they saw his name, and it starts to build like, oh, this guy's validated. He's been scouted because they can't scout everybody. Unrealistic for them, right?
Right.
So once that happens, those 3 quarterbacks, I know 100% you've written about those guys. I know for a fact.
I'll pull up their middle school pictures.
And we've talked about it. And so, but it's one thing to talk about them as potential guys and then show up, because a lot of guys probably get written about that don't do anything and then show up and don't show well.
From the fan side,
right?
Oh, all the time.
And then so that's where a lot of how this all works. So I think there are a lot of misinformed people, whether that's youth coaches or high school coaches or fans or whoever. There's a lot of high school coaches that get it, believe me, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But there are a lot of coaches and youth coaches in particular that don't understand how all this stuff links together, right? And I think, being in it as long as I've been in it, being as long as you've been in it, that's what I get most joy out of. I could care less about all the team type stuff. I really want to see kids be successful long term in their football careers and then their career as men, and and growing into men. And I think sometimes that's misconstrued that it's well, you guys are trying to do this and this. It's no. We're trying to help the individuals who we have.
That's it.
That we've been given an access to point to by their parents or by themselves, and helping them. That is not undercutting anybody in any sense, because they have to play on a team. We don't have teams.
Right.
That's not
no.
We don't have teams. You and I are not associated with the team. We don't care.
Exactly. Bingo. And a lot of people don't realize that. I don't root. I do have some coaches that are my favorites, or some teams that I'm really close with, whatever. But when I'm standing on the sideline, I am strictly there to evaluate and do analysis. And I love to provide coverage for people when they're doing well or whatever they I'd like to help out. But you're absolutely right.
So 2000, what year Gabbert graduate? Do you remember? Was it 9?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Let's just call it 2009.
Too long ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I was helping coach. I mean, I was coaching. I had my job. I was coaching at Parkway West, and I was running Elite. I have how I'm still married, I have no idea.
Right.
But the last year,
were you at that game between you had to have been West and Timberland, Monty Ball?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I was on
hell yeah. Yeah. Oh, funny story in that.
Yeah.
Because we trained Monty Ball. He had worked with Dan O'Donnell, who was one of our partners that did the speed, and then we did some receiver work with them, just stuff in the summer. And what I knew about him is that Monty Ball did not tire. That was the one thing, for whatever reason, they'd throw him on the treadmill, they'd run him, he'd do his sprint work, he'd go out, he did not, his lactic threshold or whatever it is, his cardiovascular, whatever, was really good. And we're a quarter into the game. And the head coach yells, he's getting tired. He's getting tired.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at Monty Ball, looked over, he's in his stance, and he looked, he goes,
he's a machine. Yeah.
And he only got better and better and better as the game went on.
One of those rare backs where you feed them the ball and they get better.
Yeah, it gets better over time. Yeah, some guys just wear down. Some guys are hyped early in the game. But yeah, but
I was at that game, because I believe both him and Blaine were sophomores that year.
And I was out at Timberland. And there was a ton of they played at West, and the next year, that's right, Monty was then they played because they played a back-to-back.
Right.
That the year that I was referring to with him getting tired was, I think it was his junior year, because but there were so many fans there of Nebraska, and I guess he was committed to, I don't know if he was committed, if Monty was committed at that time, but there were so many fans there, which I thought was pretty funny.
Wisconsin,
but so that last year, Blaine's senior year, I made the conscious decision. Every single quarterback and most of the receivers on both the teams, that's the star guys, we coached. I coached them, and I just felt there was a conflict of interest, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I would love to, right. And so then I coached a little bit more junior football, and I my son started 4 years ago, so knowing that I had a 4-year window, so now I'm entering my last year with that, which is a lot of fun, but I probably will get in that scenario again where I've had people ask me, hey, you want to come coach? It's I just don't.
Yeah.
It's a conflict of interest. I have too many other things. Of course, I'd love to coach my son and all that, and I've done it. but it's cool because it's just his kids that go to his middle school. Then, it's a middle school team. So, but I do think there's a lot to be gained from that side of the game, like on the coaching side, but there's also like equal amount of off the field training side, off the field scouting side. Like it's all working together. Right. And I think in a great environment, we've been able to, work with a lot of the high schools, work with a lot of the kids. And I think we help make it a better place. That would be my hope. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That would be my hope. And I think we've seen the numbers of kids steadily rise over the years to get recruited at all levels, not just the D1 guys, the NAIA guys, JUCO guys.
Well, and it feeds off itself, right? We've been doing this, and it goes hand in hand. And so they pick up on it. They see what we're doing with the other guys when they're coming up and they're younger guys. And so that's why, I'm closing in on like 25,000 followers on just X. But they see that, right? And so I get like, there's a kid who just transferred from Dowling Catholic in Iowa, right? Him and his brother, boom, they just joined the team. They follow me, and so I'm like, what's this?
Yeah,
right. Then I track that down. I'm like,
So they see who these guys are.
They transferred to play at Missouri. They're playing at Kearney, Missouri. Sophomores, defensive lineman and a linebacker. So they go into Kearney. They're from Iowa, although I do stuff up in Iowa, but they come into Missouri and boom.
Yeah.
Somehow they got hipped to, hey, follow this guy.
This is the guy.
This is the guy.
And I think that
and they tag me on their workout. They're doing their lifts and they tag me in it. It's like boom.
So, but that's again going back to my earlier statement, like someone's gonna use that against you, that you're trying to promote yourself and you're in a sea of misinformation, a sea of a lot of pretenders, a sea of all these different distractions. One thing you can rely upon is if you are doing quality work and you show well on film, that it's going to help you.
You're going to
get noticed. And so, those haters, those misinformed individuals are always going to be there. They're not going to listen to this show.
Right.
They could care less what we're talking about. Right. They're going to live in their own fantasy world until they get to the point where they're like, well, yeah, Johnny's not going to school to do anything. He was better than that kid in middle school.
Yeah.
Back to the original conversation. We're not worried about, the guys that are the pure outliers only because of being too old for their grade, being ahead of the curve maturity wise, playing in an advantageous system, whatever it might be. We're in it to evaluate and say, hey, that we can take you from point A to point B to C to D on up. And oh, by the way, you're not going to top out. Or, hey, let's be realistic about this. You might, and you might want to look at a different position.
Yeah.
Or you might just enjoy playing the game because it's going to end for you pretty quickly.
And guess what? Even if, no matter what the reason is, always there to help. When I'm tagged, they're guys, and I look at it and they tag me and their highlights or their trend. I know from doing this as long as I have where they're going to wind up at what level. I'm still gonna retweet it. I'm still gonna try to help get their name out there because somebody out there
needs them.
Somebody needs them, right? And so I don't just. I mean, it'd be really easy to just be like, okay, well, these are the top 5 guys. Some guys are like putting out, well, these are the top 50 running backs in Missouri. Come on.
I saw a list.
You get to a point to where it's like, well, why don't you just make it a top 100 or top 150? Because
which is then would encompass almost every kid playing. But
you're just going by names you find. You know what I mean? At that point.
So I did see a list of 2026 quarterbacks. I can't even remember where it came from, but one of the kids that I saw, his name was not on the list. And this happens when say the kid's not a starter the whole year, or like, because you're coming off your sophomore going into your junior year for that class. But Sam Dean is a kid that I would say at Vianney to keep an eye on. He is a kid that has slowly but surely gotten better and better. And I've had numerous college coaches call me after he's shown up at their camp because he's still like not he's physically helped himself, but he's still growing and getting bigger. So he's not like a guy that's going to walk in the room. You're like, oh, he's 6'5" and 230 pounds.
No,
but there's a few balls that he has thrown this summer that like I've seen on film where, Marcus Snozick, my right hand man, like comes to me and is like, Dude, I left up a video of Sam because he was doing some film work with him. He's like, you have to watch this. Like, it's 45 yards on a line, hits the kid in the face mask on a post, like just roped.
Right.
And you know, wasn't even caught. But he's like, he wouldn't stop talking about it because he's a kid who's worked his tail off, who, again, does he have all the talent that some of these other teams have? Probably not.
Right.
Like as far as surrounding him, but he's going to do extremely well because guys are seeing that he has the skill sets that they require.
Well, and here's the thing. He's extremely athletic, more athletic than you would think just seeing him on the hoof, right?
Mm-hmm.
And interesting thing about Sam Dean, I wrote a report on Sam Dean in the offseason after last season. And his coach actually reached out to me and was like, so you think this about Sam? I'm like, yeah, pretty high, pretty high on Sam. He's like, oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. Which again, sometimes when you're that coach,
it's going hand in hand.
Yeah, when you're in that coach, sometimes too, you know, your viewpoint, it's much like me inside of our business, like with our workers or whatever it might be, where it's like I'm looking internally a lot, but you don't get to see, like, pull yourself out of it and look and go, oh, because I can see him with other kids and I can see that he consistently wins competitions. I can see that he consistently competes. I can see that he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I can see that. And so those guys are dangerous, right? Yeah. Not in a bad way, in a good way, because they can explode. And, you know, he's a kid that had as a freshman, had an elbow injury, right? Like one of those like pitcher's elbow things.
Yeah, he does like the baseball.
And so he rehabbed it, but he basically was in silence. And he had to watch another kid who's a good quarterback, Caden Wood, play as a freshman.
Who's transferred.
Yeah, he's transferred, right? Yep. And so he's over in Illinois now. Yep. And so, and you know what? Honestly, best case scenario when you have two young quarterbacks to be in the same grade in the same city at the same school,
somebody should
sucks. They should. I mean, I know that's not a popular opinion with a lot of people,
right?
But I was once told by an NFL GM, do you know what we call backup quarterbacks? I said, what? He goes, transfers. And I said, do you view that badly? He goes, absolutely not.
No.
He said, got to get on the field.
Got to get on the field. Got to do what's best for you.
So Sam and Caden now are both in good scenarios. They're both going to have great junior years.
Yep.
But he's a guy that, you know, maybe hasn't gotten the love because he only played the tail end of the year last year.
Yeah, but we know him.
Right. And so he's showing up in reports and he's showing up and he's showing up in more importantly in camps
and colleges
and colleges are seeing it. And then they get another report from you and they start to cross link. They're like, oh, that's that kid. We have him on our board from the camp this past summer. That's how it works. Yep. And then some clown is going to go, why we beat him this year? Why he's not even that good? Right. Why is he getting offers?
Yeah.
My son sacked him 3 times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the left tackle didn't block, or you know, whatever it might be. But that's the absurdity of a lot of the small-mindedness of like not giving kids their their just reward, right, for what they've earned. And then on the flip side, we have a bunch of kids that probably earn rewards and accolades that they've never really earned. They get to college and they fold like a cheap suit because they've never really developed. But they've had people tell them they've been a 5-star since they were sophomores.
That's true, and you can see it. And again, back to Mason Went. You know, he was pretty excited because he was named a 2-star by somebody last night. And
I saw that.
So I put 4 stars. You know, it's like I wouldn't even
acknowledge it. You're right. I saw that. I think I might even retweet it. But it's like you're right. You're right. I think it's one of those things where it's like you're happy for Mason,
right?
But the reality of it is, did they even really analyze him? Because how would they say 2-star if they really watched him and saw him?
You know what? It's called covering your ass is what that is. In case this kid's getting some preferred walk-ons. And you know what? He could be somebody. So guess what? He was in our database.
Yeah, we had Mike Neese on, remember? And he literally had 0 stars coming out. He decides he's going to play at Dayton, and now he's in the NFL.
Right. There's a lot of those guys out there.
And how many other kids had all the stars that he should have gotten, and now he's playing still, and they're not. Yep. And these guys were like 4 and 5 stars that were like can't miss guys. And so that's what I think is so alarming about all of it. And the fan sites obviously keep churning and making money.
Yeah,
they've been doing it for a long time. They have a good deal
right
going,
but it doesn't make the player.
It does not.
It does all that stuff. And I know it's hard, but man, you got to put that stuff out of your mind, because it doesn't make you.
It does not. Unfortunately, it doesn't. And it would be a whole lot easier if it did, but it doesn't.
It really would.
Yeah,
it really would.
So
man, another hour is flowing by, and we didn't even really get to touch on a lot of. I mean, there's just so much stuff out there that we could make a 2-hour show, really, especially with the season.
Well, I think as we as we get closer, maybe we talk a little matchups with some teams, and obviously get some more players on
again. Yeah, and more players, coaches on. I know last year we had a lot of that. I know one of our better interviews I thought was Jamar Mosey last year from Lee's Summit North, who then matriculated to Central Florida. Now he's at Nebraska.
Is he really?
Oh yeah, he's an assistant at Nebraska now. Which this past week, his former player Isaiah Mosey.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah,
I didn't put two and two
together. To Nebraska. Which, by the way, Jamar is his uncle, not his father, like some people were.
And another thing, what people don't know, we maybe touched on it, but like analysts and those guys that are getting hired can now coach. And so like they've kind of like rolled out, and I don't know what the rules are, like being a high school coach. And maybe that was because he was a college coach and then he went. So then there's the connection. So there's rules around all that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like they used to say if a high school coach was going, then they had to be like a position coach if they were tied to certain recruits or whatever. Well, now I guess they're all technically position coaches because of that rule.
Oh yeah.
So curious to see how that unfolds.
Have a staff of 50 on your team.
Yeah.
Hey, we want this kid from this area. We'll hire him as a coach.
Right.
Used to be happening back in the day, but now they can expand that. But no, Jamar's a great coach, a great guy. And,
awesome. Good for Nebraska.
Look for more Kansas City guys, including possibly some of these other Lee Summit North guys to be heading up north.
And you said they had a great freshman class. So
oh my God, unbelievable. Watch those guys. I mean, those guys are just gonna put it on the field because they're all on the varsity team now, and they're gonna do it. My top two teams in the state that I think is probably going to be, although Misha hasn't released the districts or the classes yet.
Yeah,
I guess they're going to do that game day. But
they're a little backlogged these days. I think
they're busy trying to do stuff.
Hey, well, hold on. We do need to talk downline on this, but the Misha eligibility deals and how they wait to the last minute.
Yeah.
When you have all summer to do it, like I think it's very difficult to understand.
They're on vacation.
Why they do that when they have these kids and these families, and a lot of these transfers are hanging in the balance. Yeah. And like there's people's, and not to beat the subject, but like when we talk about it, I foresee a day when the high school NIL stuff comes into play, where they're not going to have a leg to stand on because they start chopping people's eligibility to make money and maximize their earning potential. Financial issues rule the day.
Yeah.
And I foresee maybe it won't be in Missouri first, but it will be a situation where there's a high school kid suing a state association for limiting their eligibility, which then limits their ability to earn.
There will be some deflated egos when that happens.
It will. Yes. It's going to be. Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But, sorry. So who are your top two? And then we'll get out of here.
Yeah. Just top two big schools.
Yeah.
This Matt Lee Summit North.
Yep.
They got the talent. They got the coaching. It's all going to be put together. Dark horses are last year's championship teams, CBC and Liberty North.
Yep.
So
sounds fair to me.
Things to do. Yeah. Where can people reach out to you?
Just Elite Football on X and Elite Football Academy on the old Instagram.
There you go. JP Rock MO on X and JP Rock Scouts U on Instagram. Of course, all things Football 360, football360show.com. It's been fun. We will talk to you next week. Everybody have a safe and productive week, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.